will run fine. So here we go. Number of arguments for a filter. At the end, I put 3 because my function requires 3 arguments. The first one being classes, and the second one being class, and the last one being the post ID. So through those 3, I can figure out what do I want to return for this post class. Have any of you actually used the post class hook? No, not familiar. That's great. There's actually a lot more to WordPress than you realize. There are a lot more hooks and functions and options. So yeah, you can really get lost in it. And actually, for the last one, once again, figure out what you want to do. So I have this magical plugin, and it has this custom style sheet. What I want to do here is I want to add a custom style sheet. Let's go forward. Standard format, headers at the top, hooks, the PHP code. From here, you'll realize that it's not as difficult as you think it is. You'll realize that all you have to do is just remember the headers. And if you don't remember the headers, you always have the field. You always have the plugin resources out there. You have WordPress Codex, you have the plugin repository, and you have Google. And then you just put the hooks. The hooks would be whoever you wish. And then the PHP code. So do not fear writing code. Do not fear writing your plugin. You may fear editing some other plugins out there, but don't worry about creating your own. It's not as difficult as you look. So what we have here is actually an action hook. The difference here is I do not call add filter. Over here, I call add action. And I'll hook onto the init action. The init action is one of the first hooks that is called in the WordPress execution. It is not the first one, but it is within the top few. So over here, what will happen is let's have a look at it, okay, first. I don't need to, you should notice here, I didn't specify the additional arguments, the priority, the number of accepted arguments. So what will happen is just call in my code. Class, my style, and I have a function. And whatever is in it is called out. Over here, I call the WP enqueue style. This is a WordPress specific function. There are actually a lot of these available. For example, in JavaScript, there is a WP onQueue script, which we would specify. So for the first, for WP enqueue style, the format goes as so. When I call it out, the first thing I will do is, okay, sorry. My 2 is supposed to be shifted to the left a bit. It's supposed to be on top of my style. That is my bad. So the first part, the WP style, that is the WordPress function. If you go to the codex, you'll notice that the template, that there are a lot of available functions that you can use. You do not need to recreate these functions. So WP style is the function name. And the second part I have to specify is the style ID. The style ID is whatever you wish to choose, whatever you should call it. I call it here my style. And the third one is the style URL. This is the URL to your style. I use the constant WP plugin _ URL, which would specify your plugin directory. And I'll specify specifically the style. This, as you see, is just my plugin path and the style. The style is called style CSS. So from here, you can configure it to however you want to set it up. So, oh yes. So remember how I said actions do something. Actions actually do not need to return something. That is the main difference with filters. Actions will just call code, but they're not requiring you to return anything. So let's go back. Over here, I did not need to return anything. They'll just call code and execute code on demand. They will not transform. They'll just call code. If you want to go ping Google, have it go ping Google at this time. But they don't need to do much. So over here, you actually have the building blocks of building a plugin. It's very, very simple. All you need to know is you need to know which hooks to use. And you need to know PHP law. That's probably the most difficult part. And through that, you can just start building any plugin out there. So, if there's anything you want to take back from this, besides my code, which is all available online, is that there are two kinds of WordPress hooks. There are actions, and there are filters. Remember this is the most important thing, because sometimes you may confuse the one or the other. Sometimes I myself accidentally call add action on a filter, and I might want to call add filter. So remember, there are two kinds of WordPress hooks. And the biggest difference is, actions, they do something. They don't need to transform code. They don't need to transform text. And filters, they transform. They can transform arrays. They can add on to arrays. They can transform text. They can do that. If you want also, you can also have your filters. They can actually they can double up as actions as well. That gets a bit more complicated. And actions, do something. Filters, transform. So, my kitten picture went missing. Someone asked for more kittens. My kitten picture went missing. Okay. Damn it. My kitten picture.
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
Okay, PHP new question.
Yep.
What's a class?
Okay. So let me go to some code, okay? Just make it easier.
In your example, your preference, you prefer.
Yes, I prefer that way. Oh, this is not a good example. Let me scroll down. Okay, so what is a class? For noobs, I'll just say, think of it as a container. Think of it as a container so you don't run into naming conflicts, because someone else might have created another function called the content. So just think of it as a container where I can just store store functions in it. So it makes it a lot easier to remember which hooks belong to where. It promotes naming conventions.
So this means that anything that belongs to that class will only apply to whatever you define in the class.
Yes.
Okay.
So okay, I'm gonna get out of the camera for a second. So over here, you have WordPress to WordPress. That's just the class. And the content refers to the function name.
Right.
So over here, it just allows me to contain these in the namespace. So I don't get any conflicts.
Otherwise, the content would collide with WordPress function.
Yeah, we're collide with the WordPress function called the content.
Yeah, all right.
But if I put it this way, it's a lot easier to say, hey, this function does this. I can easily tell. I don't need to think twice of what does this function do. Likewise, that's why I also put the hooks above, so I can see immediately what hooks does this plugin work with.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Everyone hammering me on Twitter? Am I a good reputation on Twitter?
Yes.
Huh? Yes, it's good. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe not technical questions.
Yeah, I got another one.
Okay.
How do you submit a plugin to the repository?
Okay, so if you want to submit a plugin to the repository, and the first thing, let's rewind a bit. Okay. Okay, so if you want to submit a plugin to the repository, what you need is a folder, and inside this folder, you need the minimum readme.txt, and you need the plugin itself.
Okay.
So what you then do is you actually have to create a website for it. It doesn't need to have its own special domain. It just needs to have a little website. And what I do is I just copy my README stuff into there, format it up, and then you go onto the WordPress plugin repository website. And on the left-hand side is an option to submit plugin. So what you do is you enter your plugin title, you put in the description, which I just copied from the README, I put it in there, and then I just put, at the bottom it requires you to put in the URL for the plugin page, and you just copy it in there. So after that, it may take a few days, not instantly. It may take 2 days, it may take up to a week, but given enough time, your plugin will get